just messed him up. My dad didn't spank me. He hit me with his fist. That's what I know. Nice, huh? Good. And he was a war hero. Highly decorated. And I can tell you.
Good evening. Agency meeting. Sorry for, it's May 20th, 2025. Sorry for our lateness, but this is what happens during budget session. So please note that all council members are present. However, Councilmember Ritchie has asked to be excused tonight. With that, we've got the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you are able and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please take a moment of silence. Thank you. Next on our agenda is acknowledgements. Are there any acknowledgements from council members?
Boy, I'd just like to acknowledge the Ogden City Marathon held on Saturday and the tremendous participation and the huge contribution that the Goal Foundation makes. And everybody that came here to run, I think that Goal shared that 48 states were represented in 6 foreign countries, and about 7,000 athletes participated in the whole thing. It was a beautiful day. It ran very well, and for everybody that is a member of the city or plays a role with the city that participated, congratulations. David Sawyer, I saw, Jeremy Smith, Bart Blair, Ken Ritchie were all running in one or the other of the events over the course, plus many others that I didn't see that day. So congratulations to everybody.
From the fire department ran.
Oh, all right. So it was a wonderful event, and it just brings Ogden to life. It was fun to be part of it.
Any other acknowledgements? All right, moving on, we have a public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Justin Sorensen. Am I so off on this?
Thank you, Chair and board members. I'll give Brandon just one moment to pull up this presentation. But before you tonight, for your consideration, is a budget amendment to adjust 4 different funds in the RDA based on some information. Let me wait for him to pull that up and make it easier to talk through it.
Sorry.
Oh, the other one. That's the city one. So I can start talking through. So in this budget opening, there's as I said, it affects 4 different areas. The first one is related to the Hinckley Airport RDA area. This is an area that has expired previously. It expired in 2021. There are some funds that are still left in that area, left over from excess increment received that was not, there wasn't any use of it. And so it's been sitting there for a few years. And so we're proposing to use those funds. They can be used with the project going on right now with the terminal. We had originally appropriated funds out of the Airport Drive RDA area to be able to assist with the terminal expansion. That was an accounting error between the 2 areas. That area was specific for where Williams International is. This one was for the whole airport. And so this is just an accounting correction, but to appropriate $480,000 out of that fund balance in the Hinckley Airport area to be able to use towards as part of the terminal expansion improvements project. In the Kiesel area, there's 2 items to recognize. These are both funds that are being received. One of them is for the Wall Avenue corridor study. We have an agreement with UDOT that they would assist in the cost for that study. They are contributing $50,000 towards that study. The RDA is also contributing that amount. So we'd like to recognize that $50,000. And then the other one is an appropriation to recognize funds from UTA as part of an environmental assessment that will be completed as part of the Union Station neighborhood project. So that's $13,000 that we'll be receiving from UTA for that assessment. So the total increase in the Kiesel area is $63,000. In the Adams CRA area, we're proposing to increase that budget by $140,000. And this will also have an adjoining portion in the city meeting to recognize. So what this would be is a transfer from BDO lease revenue of $140,000 that would go into the area for arts and area programming. If you recall, back in December, administration had proposed to use increment from the Adams area to be able to do some programming, and the board at that time voted against that. And so administration, and it wasn't necessarily because of the project or to be able to do the programming in the area, but part of it was with the funding source. So administration is coming before you tonight to propose using BDO lease revenue to be able to do that programming. And then the other one is in the RDA housing fund. We recently purchased the Aspen Care facility, and with that there's some additional expenses associated with the asbestos removal and demolition. And so We're proposing, and this is also in conjunction with the city budget opening in relation to excess fund balance we have in the general fund, that we'd like to move $350,000 to the quality neighborhoods housing to be able to cover those costs associated with the asbestos and demo. The overall increase to the budget in the RDA is $1,033,000. With that, is there any questions that I can answer?
Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone that would want to talk specifically about this budget amendment,
Linda Sanchez. I was just wanting to talk a little bit about this, just because it just seems weird to me as a citizen that we put funds into certain allocated places and then we disperse them. It just seems weird. Me as a taxpayer, I want to fund certain things, but I choose not to participate in other things, which is not saying that another person can't, but I don't want to spend my money that way. As far as housing, I am not for high density housing, if that's at all part of that. And I feel like sometimes, and maybe I'm wrong for saying this, but in this budget process, I see that and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like we're wasting a lot of money in a lot of different areas. And I see myself and others are just barely scraping by. And sometimes people are having a hard time holding on to their houses and stuff like that. And when I see you guys moving things around, it's like, okay, my first thought here was, okay, well, how is this going to increase my taxes? What real impact is this going to have me, and what is it really going to do for the city? Is there personal partners, like partnerships that are going on and that we're just trying to help each other out? And the ones that actually maybe need that assistance is not being there. With that being said, as far as the whole budget process, I think I've even asked you guys what I'd like.
This is just for the budget amendment we just talked about, so just want to make sure.
Okay, well, just so that you guys can just think about this, I just think, how can we save? I don't understand why we have seven councilmen for this amount of city. I just think if we even had, 3 or 4, that would save us some money. And I just think, what is the citizens actually getting? Just my thought. That would save us some money. And I just feel like sometimes when you guys, and I don't mean to say this disrespectfully, but sometimes you're a rubber stamp council. Mr. Lopez, I miss him because he used to stand up and he used to talk to people, and if people believed in something, even if he did eventually say something, like maybe go with the crowd, he would stand up for the people that actually put him there and bring up questions, bring up answers. This is supposed to be not an easy process, guys. It's supposed to be ugly a little bit, but yet we come together and say we love each other because I love you, you love me, we can get together.
Thanks, Linda. Yep. There's a member on Heath Sato online.
Hey there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. In regards to this, last week we talked about the RDAs and TIF used in those, and I raised concerns about an overlooked aspect, I believe, of tax increment financing, aka TIF in Ogden. specifically how it affects long-term residents. And when I mentioned that increasing property values could raise taxes for fixed income residents, despite Utah's truth and taxation laws, y'all discussed it a little bit and then ended with, well, it's complicated. And well, yes, there is a fairly easy way to wrap your head around it. Even with our formal tax increase requiring truth and taxation hearings, individual property owners can and will pay more when their property values rise faster than the city average. So that's the critical point. The explicit goal of TIF districts, if you read what they are built for, it's to increase property values in those targeted areas. Sometimes it's referred to as gentrification. It's, sometimes it's just called development. But when it's successful, properties in and surrounding these areas will see their values rise faster than the rest of the city. So by design, it means residents in and near TIF districts will bear a higher tax burden even without an official tax increase vote. This is especially beneficial for investors buying and selling properties, those increased values. But for long-term residents like seniors on fixed incomes, these invisible tax increases can be a huge hardship. I believe our government has a duty to be transparent and present both benefits and drawbacks when promoting certain types of development. We should acknowledge that while TIF districts may eventually boost city revenues and improve neighborhoods, they can also displace the residents who have invested years into our community. So if any council members want to discuss this in more depth, I welcome the discussion about ways to address these issues. One might be targeted property tax relief programs for vulnerable residents within those districts. That's just one. And there's other approaches that will allow us to pursue development while protecting those who helped build our community. You all have my contact information. I do appreciate your time and consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath. Anyone else?
Chair, not seeing any movement or hands online, I would make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Board Member Myers to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Just a motion, the amendment.
Okay, Chair, if I may, regarding proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget amendment and proposed resolution 2025-12, amending the budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through 2025, I move for adoption.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Board Member Graff, second by Vice Chair Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2025-12. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair.
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka.
Aye.
Board Member Graff.
Aye.
Board Member Myers.
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer.
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye. That passes. We're going to, motion to adjourn on this meeting.
Yeah, motion to adjourn the RDA meeting. Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Graff, second by Board Member Blair to adjourn the meeting. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. I just want you to know we're not doing public comment in this meeting, but we will do it in the city council meeting, so hang tight with that. I should have maybe said that before we started. ready. All right. Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting of May 20th, 2025. Please note that all council members are present except for Councilmember Ritchie, who asked to be excused tonight. With that, we have the approval of minutes for the joint work session of April 8th, 2025. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you, Chair White. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be correct.
Great. And then strategy session of April 22nd, 2025. Councilmember Myers.
Madam Chair, I've reviewed those minutes, and they are correct to the best of my recollection, and I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for those two meetings.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Myers, second by Councilmember Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On next is consent items. We have the Public Safety's Appeals Board reappointment. Considering Eric Baumann to the Public Safety Employment Appeal Board, and then we have the Sustainability Committee reappointments with Kaya Clark, Derek Martinez Lopez, Eric McDonald, and Lena Morgan.
Chair, I'd make a motion that we adopt the common consent items listed in the agenda.
I'll second it.
Great. We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Myers to appoint or reappoint, the approval of the appointment or reappointments for both the Public Safety Appeals Board reappointment and then the Sustainability Committee reappointments. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Is there anyone from either of those here? No? Okay, just making sure. Except for Lorenzo.
Got the boss here.
Yeah.
Yep, Lorenzo's here.
All right, moving on. We have the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget amendment. Justin Sorensen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, council members. Pleasure to be here with you again to go over this budget opening. This is a little bit larger of a budget opening than the last one that was discussed in the RDA meeting. So I will go through this, and please feel free to stop me if you have any specific questions. There are a lot of items for your consideration in this budget opening. There may be some items I don't specifically call out, but just know a lot of the items in here are cleanup items or recognition of grants. And then there are a couple of large items for your consideration tonight. If you recall, well, first of all, so the total budget appropriation for your consideration is to increase the city budget and the strike force budget by a total of $118,395,800. This is a little atypical from a normal budget opening. It's a lot larger than other budget openings that we've done in the past. But you'll see why there's such a large increase here. So to begin with, I just wanted to draw your attention. If you recall back in February when our auditors were here to give an update on our annual financials for last fiscal year, we did have a couple of state compliance findings. One of them was related to our fund balance in the general fund. We can have up to, the state set a ceiling that you can have up to 35% of your revenues be held in fund balances assigned or unassigned. And we were slightly above that amount at the end of last fiscal year, and it was mainly due to our investments that performed well. And if you recall, we discussed this a couple weeks ago in work session. And so in order to correct that finding, we need to either spend down those funds or transfer those out. And in this budget opening, we're proposing to mainly transfer those funds out of the general fund so that we can take care of that overage that we have.
again.
It's online. That sounded like Keith.
And then the other portion of this $7 million that I'll be discussing is from this fiscal year. So we don't want to have this same finding again at the end of this year. And in working with Morton, our financial group, and where our investments are at year to date, we anticipate that we can safely increase the interest revenue by an additional $3 million this year and then propose a use of those funds. So this budget opening includes a total of $7 million for those two items, for a use of fund balance from prior year fund balance of $4 million, and $3 million related to interest income that we expect this fiscal year. And what you see in your screen right now is the proposed use of that $7 million and what funds they would be transferred to. Beginning with the airport fund, we have an opportunity with a couple of grants in working with the FAA and also the federal government to be able to do a few projects. And this is an opportunity for the city where a lot of those projects require a roughly 10% match. And so we're proposing in this budget opening to recognize, and I'll talk about it in the airport fund, but just to make you aware, to recognize those funds for 3 different projects: the airport runway 321 improvements, the south apron improvements, and then also a cargo apron. And so with each of those, there is a match required, and so we're proposing not only to appropriate the grant in this budget opening, but also to appropriate and transfer out of the general fund $175,000 for the runway 321, $400,000 for the south apron, and $450,000 for the cargo apron. The other items listed that are proposed to go to the airport fund include partially some equipment. And in the work session today, Jared, the Community and Economic Development Executive Director, spoke to this a little bit about the opportunity we have to purchase an ARF truck. We currently do have one at the airport, but to be able to create a redundancy, and instead of going out and purchasing a new one, which is well over $1 million, we have an opportunity right now to purchase a used one through Salt Lake City from their airport as they're turning over their fleet. And so we're proposing to use some of these funds to purchase that, to be able to purchase a used ARF truck, and also to purchase some snowplows. And a lot of those are so that we can be compliant with FAA requirements out at the airport. We also would like to appropriate $45,000 that would be used to demo existing structures where the new tower is going to be built. The expense for the actual build of the tower will be through the FAA, but we're responsible for clearing out the structures that are there as part of that. And so we're proposing to use $45,000 for that. And then the other item there is a piece of equipment. It's a broom head attachment for a piece of equipment at the airport. We have some, again, grant funding available to us for that of $126,000, which requires $14,000 in match. So we're proposing that also to go to the airport. In the IT fund, we're proposing to move $650,000 there. What that would be used for, I believe I discussed this a couple weeks ago. During COVID, we received CARES funds from the federal government, and a lot of those funds we were able to use to replace a lot of IT equipment, a lot of computers. And as you know, IT equipment has a life cycle, and because we did all of the entire city at one time, a lot of those computers are now either need to be replaced or past their replacement life. And so we, as a city, we only appropriate so much per year for replacement. This is to help us get further along in that. We felt it was an opportunity to do that. And part of that is also our police department, or let me speak back up a little bit. Part of the reason that we also need to do this right now is we do have several computers in the city that are running on a prior Windows 10, I believe, which is not going to be supported in the fall, and so they need to be upgraded to Windows 11, and we do have a handful in the city that can't be upgraded. So part of this $650,000, and a lot of those are in the police department, the computers they use, and so that $650,000 will go towards computer replacement across the city. In the facilities fund, we're proposing to move $400,000 there. The police department was working or had applied for a grant in hopes to get some funds to be able to do some improvements to where their virtual training room will be at the public safety building. They weren't able to, they did not receive that grant, but they are needing to move forward with doing some improvements there and also with purchasing some equipment. So we're proposing to move $400,000 into the facilities fund to be able to cover those costs. In the golf fund, the 2 items that we're proposing to move there. I believe it's been discussed, the golf fund in whole for operations has come a long ways over the last few years, but one, they still don't have the funds available to be able to do capital improvements. And so there's the city over the years has funded through BDO lease revenue to be able to help with capital projects. This is an opportunity to continue to do the work needed at Mount Ogden related to the irrigation improvements there. There's still a lot more that needs to be done besides what this $400,000 will cover, but this is an amount that will help as they continue that project at the Mount Ogden Golf Course. And then the other one is to move $88,000 to be able to do improvements to the Mount Ogden fence. The proposal for that project is actually a total of $350,000. Majority of that is coming from, each year the city receives municipal ramp funds based on our population from the county that can be used for any type of activities related to arts, recreation, parks, those types of things. And so the last couple of years we've used it to help with funding the El Monte deck build that was done there. So we're proposing, this is actually a couple years of municipal ramp funds to help with that, along with the $88,000 from the general fund. We're proposing to leave $180,000 in the general fund and moving it to the police department. One of the changes that council has requested is, as we look at unused wages each year, looking to use those in future years. In prior years, the police department may have come forward and said, we have excess dollars, we want to use it to buy equipment. And with that change in philosophy, there is still that need for them to purchase equipment, and they don't have a sufficient operating budget to do so. And so this will help with a little bit with some of the need that they have at this time. In the RDA fund, as was mentioned in the RDA meeting, this would be $350,000 going to the housing for quality neighborhoods for the asbestos and demolition at the Aspen Care Facility. And then the last portion of the $7 million is going to the CIP fund, with the two portions going to help with the funding of two different roof replacements that are happening at Union Station and Golden Hours. We do have some funding already for both of those, but the costs have come in quite a bit higher for both, and so we're proposing to help offset some of those increased costs. They had to do some redesign with Golden Hours because they had some leaking, so there was some additional cost there. And then obviously Union Station, there's a decent cost with replacing that one. And then the last portion, that after we went through and identified all the other uses, the last portion of $2,827,025 is proposed to go into the CIP into a holding account that will be used and later appropriated related to the Union Station campus and museum when that begins. So that money would be held right now. So that's not going to the Union Station right now, it's going to the area and will be held there. Additionally, in the general fund, there are a couple other items that are proposed. One is each year we received funding from the state related to some beer tax revenue that's received. This year was more than what we had budgeted for by $29,000, and so we're proposing to recognize that. And then also each year, in years past, we've used these funds to help cover some wages. The last couple of years, we've been using it to help cover some operational costs that they've needed. And so in the budget, we're proposing to reduce a wage line by $160,000 and move it to their small tools for some equipment that they purchased. This doesn't affect wages at all. I just want to reassure that we're not cutting anything. This was $160,000 that used to help offset some of the wages in the past. In the last few years, we haven't used it for that. In the fire department, we received some funding, a reimbursement for some equipment that was purchased through Region 1 Emergency. We're recognizing that. And then also for the firefighters that went and helped with a couple of hurricanes, we're recognizing the revenues or the funds that received from FEMA for helping there. Under non-departmental, as part of the amount that I spoke of for the municipal ramp funds for the golf course fence at Mount Ogden, a portion of that was deposited in the general fund a couple years ago and had not been appropriated for a use. This is appropriating that so that we can transfer it to the golf fund and use those. The $70,000 decrease in general fund contingency is proposed to move to Union Station for their centennial celebration. As you recall, this has already occurred. We originally had a source for that, but we were going to use ARPA funds, but with the changes in how we used the ARPA funds last year, we needed some funds to cover this, and so the proposal is to use some of that excess contingency we had in the general fund to cover those costs. And then the last item in the general fund is to recognize funds received from the Narrow Gauge Preservation Foundation as part of the 223 locomotive inventory. We already did an appropriation of $15,000 for the city side. This is appropriating the $15,000 that they have provided for that project. This is a picture of them working on the inventory of that locomotive. In the CIP fund, I'll go through these kind of quickly. We've already talked about the top couple of items regarding the Union Station campus and the Golden Hour and Union Station roofs. in funding the golf course Mount Ogden fence, we have a project in the CIP fund currently that was funded, I believe, 3 years ago, using municipal ramp funds related to identification signs. That is not enough for what the Parks group is needing to do, and so in discussions and looking at what we need to do with the fence, we're proposing to reappropriate those funds this year and use them as part of the Mount Ogden fence improvements. So this is decreasing that project that had the funding and moving it to the golf fund. And then we also had a couple other small, we had a small grant received from Rocky Mountain Power that we're adding for the Marshall White, just some additional funds to be able to use for the turf and fencing as part of the overall project. And then the last item there is just recognizing funds received from the Dinosaur Park Foundation related to the parkway maintenance, at the Centennial Trail Parkway maintenance. The water fund, the increase there, and this is the largest portion of the budget opening, and that's all related to the water line. It's recognizing the loans that the city has entered into to be able to do the water line project, the $34 million from the state, the $42 million from WIFIA, and then also recognizing $10 million that we also were provided from the state to be able to help with the project. And then other cleanup items related to the project. So the total increase in the water fund is just over $87.5 million. And these are some pictures from what's going on with the project up the canyon right now. In refuse, we'd like to propose a use of fund balance in that enterprise fund, to be able to purchase 5 refuse trucks. We should have done this as part of the fiscal year 25 original budget, but it was missed, and so each year, or as part of the cycle with those trucks, we're trying to break it up so it's not 10 being replaced all at once. So this will allow us to order 5 of them now, and then in the fiscal year 26 budget, we're proposing to be able to purchase 5 more. And so this is an increase of $2.3 million in the refuse fund to be able to order 5 refuse trucks now. And then in the airport fund, all of these items are related to, I have already spoke of. It's recognizing the transfer in from the general fund, as well as the grants being received for those various projects and equipment, increase of almost $11 million to the airport fund. These are a couple pictures of an ARF truck and a refuse truck for reference. Pretty big pieces of equipment. So, all right, in the golf fund, so the 2 items there is recognizing the funds coming in to be able to do the fence project for Mount Ogden, and then the other is the $400,000 for the irrigation, to continue with the irrigation improvements at Mount Ogden. So a total increase of $750,000 in the golf fund. BDO, this is related to the budget opening in the RDA meeting. So this is using our BDO funds and transferring those to the Adams area to be able to use for art programming in that area. And then in the storm fund, there was funds we received from the state to help with continued restoration at the Weaver River for some improvements there. So this is recognizing $35,000 from the state in the storm fund. And these are some pictures of the Mount Ogden fence and the need for the improvements there. All right, I think 2 more. So in the Fleet and Facilities Fund, a lot of these are items as an internal service fund. A lot of things are purchased through Fleet and Facilities or IT, and so the budgets will both be in those funds and in whatever fund that it's associated with. So in here, we received a grant from a Clean Fleet grant that's helping with the purchase of a new fire truck that's over $1 million. We can receive up to 25% or $300,000 that helps offset the cost for that. So this is recognizing that grant. This is also to recognize what will be purchased for the airport and then charged back to the airport fund related to the equipment there. And then also increasing the budget related to some assets that were sold to increase the replacement under fire, management services, police, and public services. So each year as we sell assets through GovDeals, that's an auction site, as those revenues come in, we'll come and we bring on an appropriation and it just allows replacement dollars to go further for fleet. And then the last item there is the $400,000 that I spoke of earlier for the HVAC improvements for the virtual room at the public safety building. And then the other one in the IT fund, this is recognizing that $650,000 increase to be able to go and work on computer replacement. I won't go through all of these in the grants fund, but as you can see, this shows the work that our grant writers are doing. It's great work that they've been able to go out and apply for a lot of grants. We've received a lot of grants. And so this is an overall increase to our grants fund of just shy of $1.2 million for several different items, several related to police, community and economic development, and fire. So they're doing a lot of great work in going out and seeking and finding funds. A lot of these are no match required. There are some that do require a match, but there are several of these that it's for programming, and so it's a great opportunity for the city to be able to continue and do more things through these grants. So, and then the last two items, one is in the major grants fund. This is a budget cleanup item. We realized when we did the fiscal year 25 budget, we had decreased the amount available under our Synchrony line of credit. This is correcting that item, that line item, increasing at 1.6 million back up to 3 million, which is where it should be at. So that's a correction. And then in the strike force fund, as if you recall at the beginning of the presentation, our other finding was related to the strike force being over budget at the end of last year because we had missed this 2024 HIDA grant that we had received. So this is recognizing that, and also the 2025 HIDA grant. So the overall increase in the strike force fund of $646,000. So again, the total appropriation for your consideration tonight is $118,395,800. Any questions?
Yeah, I have any questions? I have a quick question, and it has to do with the police budget.
Okay.
So last year we made that change, and I'm sure it's going to take a little time to get used to what they need to budget, and I'm assuming that's what we're seeing here. Do you feel like this next budget set round is getting better at getting closer to the right budget amount?
I think it's in the right direction.
And we can ask them when they come to as well, but
in the budget for next year, there is some proposed increases for operating expenses for them. So we have proposed a few things that way to help. So and hopefully each year we can continue to evaluate that and see what that true delta is. When you're talking a $30 million budget for a police department that's 95% payroll, they don't have much for operating for travel and education and equipment, and so we'll continue to evaluate that, but we are making some steps in the fiscal year 26 proposed budget to try and help with that.
help with that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So just a comment, because there was it was mentioned earlier, just some sensitivity around the amount of money that we seem to be appropriating and spending and that sort of thing, and how does that impact taxes? This is a huge number, $118 million, but just with the airport fund, and I did just a quick little pencil here, about $1,039,000 worth of city monies being allocated to the airport generated $9.5 million worth of matching funds or grants from, a lot of them from the FAA and other organizations. But to be able to put forth $1 million and then see a total of about 10.5 is really a tremendous advantage to the city. And as we continued through your budget, there were a lot of opportunities where grant money came in to match with city money to really level up or lever up what we can do for the city with some grant monies that are available only because we've got the good fortune to have some seed money on the front end. So I think it's a really powerful thing to be able to use other people's money to create a better Ogden for us.
Completely agree.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. This is a public hearing. Anybody that would like to speak to the 15 pages of numbers?
Linda Sanchez. As far as the airport goes, I do agree with you, Councilman Graff. That is actually really an advantage to not only the citizens, that they don't have to go clear to Salt Lake, but that they have access here. I do want to ask, how is Roy is doing a 10-story high density on the south of Harmon's. how is that going to affect this? So are we going to put a whole bunch of money into this, and then there's going to be some problems or loopholes that we're going to have to jump through? Just a thought. As far as the police, I'm sorry. I feel like I want a refund. We gave them money last year because we were not paying them anywhere near enough. I came before this council and asked for de-escalation training, which I was told was going to happen, and they were going to bring the shooting, a simulation, to the police station, and that they were going to redo the whole Frankham Center. That they were going to bring that there, and they're going to do some de-escalation training. I don't feel like the de-escalation is happening. With as much police shootings that I'm seeing, we have a lot of police on scene. The other day, driving down the road, 25th Street, it looked like a homeless man. There was 8 cops there. And now, I'm sure the homeless man was going to do something really horrible, but to have 8 policemen there, and the police has a badge, a gun, a billy club, a taser, and how many other guys? We need to get a hold of this, and I will talk to Chief Sobey. I have reached out to him before. He is a busy man, but I will. It just makes me a little concerned. To be honest with you, we used to say to protect and serve. What I'm seeing is that people are asserting their God-given rights that is found in the Constitution. They're mistaken of being aggressive, but they're doing what the forefathers told us to do, to redress our government. And sometimes the police officers that, I've went up and talked to, with Sobey and everybody, they don't even know my rights. So how are they protecting my rights? It worries me when we keep giving them money and money and money, and I'm seeing more force. Does it really have to be that way? I just don't think so. In fact, I would probably only call the police if I wanted somebody dead.
Thanks, Linda. All right. This is just the public hearing on the budget. Unless, you can certainly, okay.
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second?
We have a motion by Councilmember Myers, second by Councilmember Chaburka to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Just a motion on the,
Chair, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2025-12.
I'll second.
we have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by Vice Chair Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2025-12. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Graff,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Blair,
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer,
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that passes.
May I make a comment, Chair? I don't know if
Please.
it's helpful, but I just wanted to respond to some of the comments that we received. I think that it gets so confusing, the budget process. Totally agree. I have been here almost 8 years now, and I'm still figuring it out. But I think what's important to note about this particular action that we took, it's really recognizing funds that we received in addition to what we didn't know we were going to have originally, and then allocating them to different projects. For example, the big one, right, the $87 million plus for the Canyon Water Line, that's money that is allocated to that particular project. So I know it sounds like, almost sounds a little bit like we can just do whatever we want, moving all this money around in different places, but because of the type of accounting we do, this is the process that we go through. And so, it is confusing, but I'm happy to chat with people about it or get an expert involved to help you understand as well.
Thanks. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to the next, reports from Planning Commission. Barton Brierly, nice to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair White and City Councilors. This is a item to consider a zone change to a property at 2850 Washington Rear. So the property is the one highlighted. It's actually in the rear of an existing building, kind of in the middle of the block. It's 0.61 acres, and the property owner is requesting a change from the current CP3 zone to an R3 residential zone with conditional overlay. The conditional overlay would limit the use to condominiums or for sale townhomes. It would allow a maximum of about 11 units. This is a legislative item, so it's up to the council if you want to approve it or not. So you're not under an obligation to approve it, but you can if you feel that's in the best interest of the city. So the property is just off Washington Boulevard. It's in the commercial CP3 zone. You can see the zoning to the rear is the R2 EC, which is a sort of medium density residential zone. Here's an aerial of the site. The site is vacant. You can see it does take access from a piece of property that has a building on it in front. It was part of an earlier condominium. So this is the front of the site. This is the building and how it gets access, and the building and the property itself is in the back. So this is, you can see what the property looks like. So comparison, the current CP3 zone would allow retail uses, restaurants, office, contractor shops, senior apartments, a church. The proposed change to an R3 would be limited to just a multifamily, which is about 11 units, and would require them to be subdivided for individual sale. You can see some of the surrounding uses. The front along Washington is commercial uses. Just to the north, there's a vacant lot, and then to the north of that is the Maverick station. To the east is that lot that you see is actually the rear yard of the Washington High School, sort of their play yard. And to the south, there are single-family homes on particular lots. There are actually two single-family homes right adjacent to this, right in this location, that to actually take access, their main access is through here, but they do have rights to access this way. So one of the things that we've looked at is sort of the access and visibility. I know there was questions about the access. That driveway is just about 20 feet wide. So it is wide enough to meet our fire access standards for the rear. It does meet fire code access standards. The city's minimum driveway width is 24 feet, so which is more than most cities. 20 feet is enough for two-way traffic. It's just our standards a little bit more than most cities. So really any development back there, even if you're to do a contractor shop or something, that would require a variance. And I know there's questions about walkways there. There would not be room for a driveway and walkway, so anybody walking would have to use the driveway. So some of the things you look at in zone change is the intensity and location of commercial zoning should be based on market patterns, circulation, traffic counts, and space requirement considerations. Space requirements for expansion of existing uses should also be taken into consideration. And ultimately, this just isn't a really great commercial property. It doesn't have very good visibility. I think if you put some business back there, you'd really have to tell every single customer exactly how to get back there, how to access it. So it would have to be something that's really a very low usage, or at least something that requires very low customer usage to get back there. So
So on the flip side, would you consider this a very good residential property?
we'll talk about that in just a
Okay.
moment. Let me, because we did definitely look at that. So we looked at the neighborhood here. Things like, are there bike lanes? Are there walkways? And there are along there. Where can you walk to? You can walk to our new Marshall White Center, pretty short distance there. There's actually a nice little grocery store. I like this grocery store because they actually sell fresh vegetables, which it's not just a 7-Eleven where everything's just packaged goods. So you can walk to there. There is close access to transit here. So, and to answer your question, it's okay. It's not great. I wouldn't say it's, you know, really prime residential area, but it does have some elements that would make it
Okay.
a decent residential area. East Central Community Plan, it is actually in the East Central community, although it's really on the edge of it. But one of those policies was to provide for appropriate infill of underutilized existing development and develop compatible vacant infill projects. This is really an infill project. You have a lot of land in the East Central that's kind of the undeveloped center of the block, and this kind of is that. So the commission felt that it was consistent with the community plan. There is a transition from the commercial along Washington. There are some houses nearby to more residential, so it does serve as a transition. Looking at the overall character, again, you're kind of transitioning from commercial to more of a residential area. And also, there's questions about the development agreement. The Planning Commission asked that there be a conditional overlay because they were interested in requiring that they be divided for individual ownership, and in this case, it'll be condominiums. That's why there's a development agreement. So this doesn't have a site plan or elevations, it just has to meet the city code requirements, and there were some questions about the actual language of that. So our city attorneys and the applicants have talked and have agreed to the development agreement. So the applicant has signed that and has agreed to the development agreement. So if you pass it, they have agreed to that. So the Planning Commission looked at it and a 5-2 vote, but you know, some felt it wasn't that great of a residential area, but the majority did, and so they're recommending that you approve the zone change.
I have a couple questions, but I'm sure other people do
Go
too.
ahead. Go ahead.
One question is, just remind me, talking about the access there, the alley, so is it an easement or something, or how do they have access through that road next to that other building?
So it was all one property at one point, and they created they wanted to separate the front building off as its own lot. So they actually created a condominium that created that front parcel, that front building as its own condominium lot, and then the access is a joint common area.
Oh, okay. And then I know that you,
Sorry, is it owned by the same person then?
It's owned by the condominium group, yeah. So the rear property owner has access to it. It's a common area for that condominium
but
area.
they're not the same owner, the people requesting this building with the people in the front building, they're not the same owner, they're two different owners.
Yeah, the front building has been sold off to another party.
Yeah. And then you said that some of the people have access through that other route. Would this property have access through that other route as well, or they would only be able to use that one?
Only that one driveway, yeah. This property doesn't have access both ways.
And then one more question, sorry, I have a lot of questions about this. So the property right in between that and the Maverick, if that were sold and something was built there, that would be a commercial entity, I would guess, because that's how it's zoned.
Yes.
How far would it need to be built away from where that fence line is? Is it like 3 feet or something?
Oh, Good question.
I'm just trying to think of like, if another building was right there, like on the fence line, that might be a little bit more challenging than what are the distances, I guess.
Yes.
And you don't have to know.
I think it can be built right to that property line.
The
I don't know
fence.
that there's a requirement for a
Okay.
setback.
That's all I have right now.
The two homes behind the commercial building that is facing Washington, are they non-conforming at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
They are. Yes, they are.
Thanks.
In the packet, I believe it said if we approve this, then they would need to get a variance. Is there, for the width? Is that what it's for, is for
Yes,
the
for
width?
the width of the driveway, yeah.
Okay.
If you don't approve it, they'd need it too, so.
If we, okay.
So it says that Ogden City owns 2 of those little parcels.
Yes, it is. Let me try to explain this if I can.
Where those houses are sitting.
Yes. So as you see, there's 2 houses here, and you see a property line going through these houses. The houses were built over the property line.
Wow.
And the property owner, the 2 houses are owned by the owner of the Mongolian barbecue. And so the property owner tried to negotiate with the owner saying, hey, do you want to like buy the back 15 feet of your property so that your house isn't hanging over the property line? That negotiation stalled, never worked. The property owner wasn't interested in negotiating, and we scratched our heads to try to figure out how to deal with this encroachment, and ultimately the solution was that the current property owners, they subdivided it and dedicated that back 15 feet to the city. So the city actually owns the back 15 feet. It was a very weird situation. Our concern was that, it would go to a tax sale and somebody would buy a black 15 feet of property. So it was a bad solution, but it was the best solution we had at the time.
Okay.
So yeah, the city owns the back bedrooms of those houses.
No, because I'm just totally conflicted about this one on a couple reasons. I always like to see infill housing in these kinds of places, number one. And I appreciate that there's been a lot of working with the person that wants to develop it, and they seem reasonable. But then at the same time, I'm just very concerned about that access point and just how that impacts, all the different things in that element. And if that commercial building could be built up right against that fence, that just kind of worries me too. But that's just my thoughts.
That kind of goes to my question. Where that property is kind of challenged, I'll just use that word. It seems like it could all be resolved if those properties were to be, all acquired under the same ownership. And whatever project, whether it was a residential or a commercial product, it would solve those problems. Seems like to me. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, one party purchased one, it'd provide a lot more development options.
Yeah, I think we have done that in the past. We've said, look, there's just too many challenges with a particular piece. So if more property is acquired, then we'll consider your proposal. But and that's kind of what I'm thinking here, is it's just too challenging. And not only that, we did make a zone change kind of for a reason a year or so ago, and this seems to kind of be in the same old mindset of before that. Now, not that that can't be. I'm not saying it's always bad, but it does seem to fly in the face of that. So.
Is the petitioner here?
Yes, he is.
No, we want to have that.
The only other thing I see on this parcel is that they're in arrears of delinquent taxes, so I don't know if those have been satisfied, or if there's a reason why, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just looking
Don't-
at parcel data, so.
yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
All right. Any other questions for Barton? Okay. All right. Let's, yeah, the petitioner's here, if you want to please come up.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak.
State your name.
I'm Selvoy Fillerup with Heritage Land Development. To the issues that I had come ready to discuss, Barton pretty much addressed, and so the really the only one that I wanted to hit on right now is the matter of that other lot next door. You bring up a very good point, and you know what? We would love to have that piece of property, and we have made several attempts to contact the buyer or the sellers in order to purchase it, and we have been unsuccessful. I personally have called you've all driven by it. You've seen the realtor sign, and I've called that number at least 5 times in the last month, trying to get some information about it. And I don't know if you know anything about realtors and how fast they return phone calls from interested buyers. I think the only people that are faster are ambulance chasing attorneys. And I have yet to get a phone call back from anybody at that phone number. While it says that it's for sale, I don't know that it really is. So we have made efforts to acquire the property because you're right, it would be a better project if we could develop both lots together. But we've been trying for as long as I've been with the company, which is about a year, and I know beyond that. So it's really not a feasible option for us. And all I can say is we've tried and failed. But we recognize that it does come with some challenges. We recognize that. What we would also say, though, is for what it is, we think that this is the best use for that property. We think that owner-occupied condos is a good fit for the area for all the reasons that Barton pointed out, with access to some of the amenities of transportation, and we feel like it's that we're putting it to the highest and best use. So I'm happy to entertain other questions if you have any. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry. Okay. All right, any other? Not a public hearing or
input?
anything? Yeah.
Got some,
Is there any public input?
No.
yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the,
There is public input
There-
on,
yeah,
we normally
we've
take
noticed
public
it.
input on
Oh,
planning
sorry.
items.
Yes, it's public input. I'm sorry. Thank you. This is public input. Sorry. My
You
bad.
know I can't pass turning down anything, right? Linda Sanchez. We talk about housing in different ways. I'm just going to say, I might like this idea, just for the fact, I've had some people that I've met that are right off this Washington in those big high-rise apartments. No setback. They don't have anywhere to park. And there was one person that parked in a parking stall. And it's like, I think, I don't know, eight stories high, I don't know. Her neighbor parked in her stall, so she just parked in the stall next to it. Ended up getting towed, $300. Here is a person that is just barely making it minimum wage, $300. And if there could be some townhouses that are just like the single-family townhouses or just something simple like that. I'm just gonna say, if it was me, I would take that over all those high density. As long as I had a place to put my car, because that is a problem downtown. If you guys haven't heard it, you will be hearing it. I actually, it's not a big apartment complex. It's just townhouses, it sounds like. I would be okay with that.
Thanks, Linda. We have a hand online. You can come up. We'll get Teresa's. Teresa?
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I am calling in to speak about this property because I know a little bit about it. My boyfriend in high school lived in the home that used to be on this property. There used to be 2 homes, as a matter of fact, located back behind the commercial building that sits on Washington Boulevard. I wish I would have looked up the history of this lot because I would love to know how it has become what it is today. But I know what it used to be was commercial on Washington Boulevard and then 2 single-family homes behind that commercial building. And I thought it was very usable like that. I drove back there many times. There was plenty of space to park. There were the 2 different homes that were back there, and they had, a large enough lot to be useful. I don't know exactly what this developer's plan is for number of units. I heard something like 11. I think as long as there is, ample space for cars to drive back there and park and turn around and drive back out. This lot has always been awkward. It was awkward 30 years ago. It's still awkward today. I don't know if there's any way it could be better than awkward without the whole block being redeveloped. And that's not what's on the table. I feel like the owner of the property has a right to use their property. I think this use is probably just as good as any possible commercial use that could be put into this awkward lot. And like I said, it just has always been awkward, and it used to be 2 residential homes that sat behind this commercial building. So that's the history of that property, what it used to be. And it was all owned by the same person at that time. So obviously since then it's been subdivided and the commercial frontage has been sold off to a different owner. But I feel like this could be a decent and useful use for this property. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hey, Teresa, will you just state your first and last name?
Yes, Teresa Bramwell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Ty Chaston. I wasn't going to get up and talk about any of this stuff, but just because I own Ogden and Brinker Apartments, have a similar situation with property that's like this. And what I want to make comment on is make sure you have the utility access coming in on that road, that one access. Can a fire truck get in there? And if they build high enough, can the ladder truck get in there? And will it need a ladder truck? And then on top of that, which we do really appreciate, one thing we got fixed was our neighbors, our commercial properties, who had their lights directly shining through the windows. Let's make sure that they follow those ordinances, and I do have some other updates I want to bring up with some ordinance changes that need to be taking place because of snow removal, dumpster waste, how is that going to be handled? Aside from the parking, where are we going to push all that snow? Out into Washington Boulevard? Or is there going to be a place for that to sit? So some things that need to be looked at before a developer comes in and says, let's build 11. Maybe they can only build 10 because they need space for water retention, because you have commercial property, potential commercial property, you got housing, and now you're putting in a bunch of blacktop and cement. There's nowhere for the water to go. Some things to consider.
Thank you. Any other questions? Barton, I have a couple of questions maybe that, and So you had said that it was 20 feet wide.
Yes.
They'd have to get a variance, correct? What is the process to do that?
They would file an application or go to the Board of Zoning Adjustments, and they would render the decision on the variance.
So we haven't seen like any initial plans or anything to put back there, how many houses they're looking at, or?
Oh, about 3 years ago, they did do a sort of concept sketch of a single building, but nothing current, yes.
And those businesses on Washington, where do those patrons park?
The building in front, I mentioned, is a condominium, and so they actually have access to this driveway. There's some parking areas there that they would do. The businesses just to the south, there's a little parking lot in the back that they park in, and there's street parking available.
And do they access that little property now? Is that how they get there? Or it's on the other side? It's on the south side?
It's on the south side, yes, for the other businesses.
And I do know, I haven't been in it yet, but I think there's a couple of apartments upstairs, so people will be parking in the back for those apartments.
Yes.
And then, I was curious a little bit about the idea around the fire trucks. I think that we kind of talked about that with the variance. But I'm curious about the garbage removal and things like that. I don't know if they're planning to have like a dumpster too, or if there'd be garbage cans on Washington. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, there would need to be a dumpster on the property, so the garbage truck would have to go through there and pick up the garbage and come out.
I just wish there was another access.
Yeah, how would they get out?
Through the same driveway.
Backing it back up?
Or something like
They
dump
may
it
have a
over.
turnaround.
Yeah, either backing it out or there may be room to do a turnaround for the garbage truck in there.
It'd be complicated, that's for sure.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Hearing none, I'd like to make a comment, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
I think this is the best use for that land. I don't see that it has any commercial value. I'm not sure that anyone of a commercial building would be building in that particular area. So that being the case, I'd like to make a motion to adopt that proposed ordinance 2025-13, amending the zoning map.
We have a motion. I need a second.
Might fail for lack of second.
All right, well. No one wants to second, really? Okay,
Apparently.
all right. That motion fails then. Any comments to that?
You know, for me, a couple things. I think we're assuming that it's not a good spot for commercial. I think legal offices could work in there. I think that there are some cool places in Salt Lake City that are tucked into some odd spots for clubs and dining and that sort of thing. I've visited one recently called the Franklin. That was way fun and not visible from the street. I have concerns about access to this area if it were to be rezoned and developed as residential. And I believe, even though we've got some opportunity in the neighborhood as far as walkability and transportation and a grocery store and the Marshall White Center and so on, as was so nicely pointed out, I think that it has an opportunity to become a better candidate for a rezone to residential at some point in the future.
Any other comments?
My comment was made earlier, so I guess I'll make a motion if that's okay then. I will move that we not adopt that ordinance 2025-13.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Graff to not adopt proposed ordinance 2025-13. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Graff,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Nay.
Councilmember Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hire,
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye. The non-adoption passes. Councilmember Myers, you want to, you mentioned earlier, but would you like to follow up?
Yeah, I think that, I just think that that neighborhood borders both commercial and residential. And for me, it just appears that the best use of that land is still residential. And I just think we can be more business-friendly, more developer-friendly. I don't think that there's that many opposition, I don't have that much opposition to them pursuing the use of their land as a residential area.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Myers, and I really agree. I just think like there's been discussions about George Washington High School, maybe changing in some way, and there's a lot of property right there, and then the other property next to it, and I just feel really uncomfortable, like I said, with just that one access point for all those different uses. So, yeah, I hope that they find a good solution. I think, it'd be a really cool place to live at some point, but it just worries me with that access issue.
My concern is, I don't think we need to be in a hurry to develop it. I still believe that there's opportunity for those properties to be acquired into one parcel and something good to be done there. And I don't disagree with you either. That may be what you use that for, but it's the access is really problematic for that project.
Okay. All right, on to new business. We have Glenn Symes with the proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 tentative budget.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. So the item on your agenda tonight is just to set a public hearing. So I won't spend a whole lot of time going into the numbers. A lot of this will just be process review and ways that folks can get information about the budget as we go through. So here, as I mentioned, some of the topics, just a review of some of the budget resources, the review schedule, just a very high-level budget overview, and just quickly to touch on personnel changes and capital improvement projects that are proposed with the budget. So we do have a number of resources available for folks if they really want to dig into the numbers with the budget. And it does start with the mayor's proposed budget book, which is included on the website, and the mayor's presentation from May 6th when he proposed his budget to you all. We do have line item budgets for revenues and expenditures, and agenda packet material, department-specific budget information, staff presentations, both in regular meetings and the work sessions, and then audio and video recordings of the work sessions and the regular meetings. So these are the actual URLs. If people want to get a hold of this presentation, this will be posted on the city's website tomorrow. If you can get there, you can click on those and go to those pages. But I did want to walk through those and show folks what those look like if they want to navigate those from the website. So first is the city's budget page. So if you just go to the main ogdencity.gov page and hover over government, you will see a budgets and finance tab there, and you can click on that and you can get all the information that's shown here. There is quite a bit of information on there. Some of the things I mentioned with the mayor's presentation, the line item budgets, the tentative budget book is a great resource for a lot of information. That's the mayor's budget book that was proposed to you. And there's quite a history of past budgets on there as well. And from that same government tab, you can hover on that and you can go down to the agendas and minutes page and then navigate to the city council's page, and you can get the links to the agendas, the meeting results, the presentations, and then the media for the work sessions and the council meetings. So that's all available there. And then the city council, on the council's page, has a separate budget page and talks a little bit about the council's budget process, a little bit more background about what you all do as you go through the budget. And there's also a department-specific budget information page on the council's budget page. So as we go through the work sessions last week, today, next week, our communications folks will build that out with all the information for those departments as we go through. So I mentioned that there are some resources available on the website, and one that I mentioned was the line item. And as I mentioned, this is revenue and expenditures, so if people really want to dive into the numbers, they certainly can. This has all of the budget lines throughout the whole entire budget for all the departments and the divisions, and so you can track the ups and downs and the totals for those as you go through the budget. This one resource, and I definitely have to give kudos to our finance folks. If I were to point one resource, or point anybody to one resource to really understand the changes in the budget and what's being proposed, it would be to look for these significant changes documents. They do a fantastic job of showing what has changed year over year, why some numbers are up, why some numbers are down, justifications, reasons for why some budgets change, why positions are being proposed, or things like that. So be on the lookout for those. They are in that tentative budget book, and we do include those in the packet material for the agenda items as well. So if you were to find the agenda item for this item on the agenda, go to the packet material, you'll see my memo, and then you'll see these significant changes documents there as well. So again, fantastic resource for understanding all the lines throughout the line item and everything else that's being proposed. So the council's review this year is, compared to last year, pretty quick. Last year's was pretty darn long, but this year is much more normal as far as the budget review process goes. So it starts with some work sessions. We had a number of departments and areas of focus last week. You heard from CED and the fire department earlier today. And so those were the first two work sessions we did. Next week on the 27th, you will hear from Management Services, Police, Public Services, and then you'll have a chance to talk about any Schedule A changes that you would want to make to the tentative budget. These terms, the Schedule A and the Schedule A1 changes are kind of confusing. So the Schedule A changes relate to the tentative budget. Schedule A1 changes relate to the final budget. So if we have changes to the tentative budget, which is proposed to be adopted on the 3rd of June, they would be in that Schedule A. And then any changes to the final budget would be in the Schedule A1. So that's why they're separated there. So we'll have another 3 work sessions in June on the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th. You will have gone through all of the departments by then, so these would just be general discussion. If you have questions, follow-up, more information, that would be an opportunity for you all to ask those questions and have those discussions. We will schedule, we have already scheduled, we will hold an open house next week. So folks, if they want to come and meet with department directors, city staff, finance staff to get more information about what's proposed with the budget, we will have that here on this floor, partly in the hallway, partly in here. We want to kind of separate it out so there's room for people to mingle and so you can hear, it doesn't get too loud and crowded. But it will be here next Tuesday at 7 p.m. So if you're interested in talking to folks, please come. And we'll have some resources available for you there, and you'll have the opportunity to talk to some folks here at the city. So as far as formal considerations, there's a number of steps that the council will need to take to adopt the budget. The first one is what we're doing here, is to set the public hearing on the tentative budget for June 3rd. And on the 3rd, you'll hold the public hearing on the tentative budget and consider adopting that, again, with any of the Schedule A changes. The council will also have the option to set the public hearing for a number of things for the final budget, and that includes the capital improvement plan, the enterprise fund transfers, the executive municipal officers compensation, which is a relatively new requirement. Last year was the first year for that, the salary schedules, and then the final budget itself. So on the 17th, the council will hold the public hearing on the enterprise fund transfers and the executive municipal officers compensation. And those are both required public hearings, but there's no specific action on either of those. So you'll hold the public hearing, close the public hearing, and then move on to consideration of the final budget, which is where those changes are incorporated. So, as I mentioned, hold the public hearing and then consider adopting the capital improvement plan, the salary schedules, the final budget with the Schedule A1 changes, and also the certified tax rate. So, as I mentioned, because we're relatively early in the process, this is just a high-level overview, really just some fun totals for the budget. Again, if folks really want to get into the details, the work session information is available. All the information is available on the website. You can also refer back to what the mayor proposed a couple of weeks ago, which is what these numbers are. So there haven't been any changes made to what the mayor proposed since May 6th. And as far as some of the significant policies, there's no property tax increase that's proposed, and what that means is Ogden City is not proposing to change the certified tax rate that is provided to us by the county. One of the big things that the council talked about last year and showed a lot of interest in is taking the unused wage and benefit funding from previous years and rolling that into any compensation or any wage and benefit needs in the upcoming year. And that was a change that was made to the financial principles. There was a lot of discussion about that. And so we can see that in the proposed budget for this upcoming fiscal year. $2 million of the unused wage and benefit funds from previous years are being rolled in to the wage and benefit for FY26. So that was something that the council wanted to see, and that is something that is proposed with this year's budget. Other than that, we don't have any significant changes proposed for the financial principles or the budget goals and guidelines. Again, just a quick overview of what's being proposed as far as personnel changes. And again, this was in the mayor's budget from a couple of weeks ago, or presentation from a couple of weeks ago. The proposed budget has 3 positions that are eliminated, 4 that are added, for a net total of 1 new position. If that were to be approved by the council, that would bring total full-time employees to 698. There is proposed 12 reclassifications, 8 title changes, and 2 transfers between departments. As far as city employees, there is proposed a 2.97% cost of living increase for all employees. The significance of that, if folks aren't familiar with what the COLA does, that actually moves the range up. So if somebody's topped out, that would actually increase their range, that 2.97%. Additionally, for non-sworn employees, so just the general employees, there's up to a 1.5% merit increase. This is awarded through the review process, kind of a standard employee review process. And then the 4% step increase for sworn fire and police, and that is based and according to their salary schedules. And that happens on the date of their anniversary, the hiring date anniversary for them. And then, again, just to quickly touch on the projects, there are 42 total projects proposed for funding in the upcoming year, totaling $29.7 million. 18 of those are one-time projects, 21 are perpetual or ongoing projects like streets and sidewalks and gutters and things like that. And then 3 ramp projects are proposed. So with that, again, the action is just to set the public hearing on the tentative budget for the 3rd of June. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Glenn? So we've tried over the years to engage the public in this, and this year we're going to try an open house. So Linda, you asked about that, and May 27th at 7 p.m. Will be a great opportunity for all of us to engage. So we've tried videos, we've tried all sorts of things. So hopefully maybe this will help. So
yes,
Chair, I think it's also this is kind of morphed together from citizen input, citizen requests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all of the historical data that's being able to be gotten at very quickly and accurately is, quite frankly, a lot better than talking to one of us. So, because we would have to go to those resources anyway to try to find those. So I'm kind of excited about how this is going to work. I'm really looking forward to next week to see how well, contrary to some people's belief, we're not trying to get things done in the dark. We really do love public input, and it is helpful in the way we do our work. So I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready to have it. I will make a motion then that we, I'm just going to read this. That we set the public hearing for June 3rd, 2025 concerning the ordinance 2025-14, adopting a tentative budget of Ogden City for fiscal year 2025 to 2026.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Heyer, second by Councilmember Chaburka, to set the public hearing for June 3rd. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. All right. Next up on the agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council or concerns on any topic. Please step up and state your
Not
name.
surprising, right?
Well,
Linda
hello.
Sanchez. I just want to tell you about the amazing course that, Councilman Heyer, you probably have been doing as well, the Biblical Citizenship class. It really does give you an overview of really what people had to do to secure our liberties and to secure our rights. One of the nice things I want to show you is this national monument to the forefathers. You don't hardly hear about that, but guess what? Our ancestors wanted to make a monument that we would not forget. The block, on the corners, it has faith, morality, law, education, and liberty. And this was so that we would not forget how we got where they were and how they fought. With that being said, you all probably have known that I've been kind of more passionate about reading the Constitution, understanding, teaching, all of that stuff. And unfortunately, Councilman Graff and Councilman Myers, I never gave you the opportunity to your own pocket constitution. So I would like to make sure that you have one so that you can read and understand and sometimes just revisit. Sometimes we all need that.
Thank you.
You know, the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, John Jay, said, "Every member of the state ought to diligently to read, study the Constitution of his country, and to teach rising generation to be free. By knowing your rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated, and to better be prepared to defend and assert them." I just want to also say it is so important for us to actually recognize when not only our rights are being violated, but when other people's rights are being violated. And to act, to have courage to stand and say that's not right. It does take courage, and it does take countenance. With that being said, in the Bible, it puts people that are cowards as the first they're going to hell. And I don't know about you, that's worse than the murderers and the sexual immoral and the idolaters, is those that are afraid and fearful. I just want to tell you that I will never quit talking to you guys about this. So I'm glad that you embrace it with me. The Founding Fathers believed
Thanks,
that the lack of patriotism is selfishness. So let's not be selfish.
Thanks, Linda. What's the course again?
Biblical citizenship
Oh,
class.
nice. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm Ty Chaston. I want to tell you all thank you for getting us the help that we needed. I didn't know that this had happened for the neighbor that was, or for our tenant that was having issues with their son that was not passing this year, until finally he was able to get some sleep the last month, where now he's passing his grade, which was interesting. We didn't know that. So I say thank you to Christian Stuckey, because we talked to many people downstairs about getting some of these issues resolved, and we got nothing. We got very little. Christian said that he's going to help us this winter when snow removal comes up and make sure that the snow is being placed on each individual property and that the water is being maintained where it needs to be and that the dirt that comes from that snow isn't being pushed on us. I had to do a major cleanup from what was deposited on our property, including new nails, screws, asphalt, cement, rocks. And then on top of that, we have their dumpsters that aren't contained in any area. I have mine contained in a fenced area, cemented and fenced in and locked. Being locked, it made it so that we don't have the homeless going through it like they are in the other dumpsters. The wind that blows that all over when they get over full. And then, of course, with Adam and Eve next door, the product that comes out of those dumpsters lands on our property. We've given evidence to Christian of the containers that our tenants' kids were playing with. I didn't want to bring that to you again to show you some of the content that is in that because it wouldn't even come through your email filter. That is still a concern. I would like to see us do something with the dumpsters where they can maybe lock their dumpsters. It would prevent the dumpster diving and the ghost dumping, and then my tenants get blamed for dumping in their dumpsters, which they're not doing. It's cars pulling in and dumping, and homeless that come in and dig through their trash looking. They think that because it was Family Dollar, they think there's food in there, and now they're just pulling out product and playing with it. And then it ends up on the ground, and then the children are exposed to the F word and many other things that are on these boxes, and women with their legs exposed nakedly, and other positions that a toy that is shaped like the vagina that's supposed to, I mean, I don't even like talking about it. It's so, it's an SOB. It really is. I don't know how it got passed, but I hope that the Planning Commission can change some things in the ordinances to address what's there and make sure that this doesn't happen to another residence of an apartment complex. And now I hear another area where they want to build that. I'd love to see more apartments go in, but they need to address some of those areas with the fire truck and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go online to Heath Sato.
Hey, he's an Ogden resident. I just wanted to say thank you for the budget presentation. I appreciate the added efforts to make things more easily understood by the citizens, and that's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath.
My name is Walt English, and I'm here to talk about your police department. And I'm really shocked that you're spending $118 million on your police department. There's a organization called policescorecard.org. I recommend that you all go to it so you know that what I'm telling you is true. 97%, you have a 97% greater chance of being arrested in Ogden than any other city in Utah. You have a 95% greater chance of being shot to death. These aren't my figures, this is from them. I have, right now, I'm in court because your police officers manhandled me, pulled my pants down, exposed my garments, and falsely arrested me. I'm really angry at your police department. They're untrained. You have an officer that says in one of the videos, you can go to Utah Cop Watch. Don't write it down because you'll learn something. And he says, I can do whatever I want. No, they can't. That's arrogance. Your cops are not trained properly. I used to be in law enforcement. I was a criminal investigator in the military. I was a military officer. You have a lack of transparency as one of the reasons. You're rated the worst police department now in Utah. Did you know that? Did you know that? The worst police department. How would you like that on your record? You got it, and you're responsible for it. You have no accountability, and you don't have transparency. Let me give you an example. I did a grammar request on May 2nd. Nothing. I don't even have a reply back. How about that, huh? with your police department? I did a complaint over 8 months ago. Nothing. Haven't heard nothing. Your police department do not, it used to be that you had 11 complaints and you didn't answer any. And one of the ones that they did answer this time was Rand Brim, who had the hell kicked out of him. Now, the other thing I want to talk about besides your police department is the trails you talked about with the golf course, correct? Can you tell me where those trails are at? Would you please do that for me?
This is the time for you to speak to us.
Well, I'm just asking you a question. Can you be hospitable and tell me where those trails are?
We will when you're done with your time.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you, you cannot, you're going to have to open those trails up. Go to Title 75, Chapter 13B, Part 2. It's prescriptive easement. You cannot close those trails because they've been used for 20 years, continuously. And you guys cannot take those away from those high school students or the colleges, period. You better look into it because you're going to probably get a lawsuit on it.
Thanks,
And
Mr. English.
Also, I'm going to sue you guys, your city, for $40 million. So get ready for it.
Thanks, Mr. English. All right, any other people in the, no one online? All right, we'll move on. Comments from the mayor, or?
The mayor isn't here. He's with his family over the weekend, and we wish them condolences on their loss of their dad. I would just like to remind council and anyone listening about the Marshall White Center opening. There's an open house on Thursday starting at 5 p.m. There will be tours that people can participate in, and also the doors will be open noon on Friday.
Great. All right, comments from the council members?
Just to kind of correct the number that Mr. English threw out with regard to what we're spending for the police department, he's quoted $118 million. It's something between $20 and $30 million to fund the police department, not $118 million.
Okay, any other comments?
I would just like to say, it's sad that Mr. English got up here and disparaged the police department and then chose to leave and not stuck around for a chance to hear us speak or defend or our own police department. But I know as a council member, I've been here the longest. It's an honor for me to be a part of the city. It's an honor for me to be associated with our police department. I am very grateful for the job that they do. I think untrained is probably the last word I would use to describe our police department, and so it offends me. It offends me as a council member and as a citizen that someone would come in here and make those kind of comments, because I've had the opportunity to be around our police department. I've had the opportunity to watch many of our officers get recruited away. So I don't believe our officers are untrained. I don't believe our officers are selfish or arrogant. I believe our officers take an oath to do what they can and do what they do to protect our residents and protect each and every one of us. And I just want to offer my heartfelt thank you to each and every one of them, to the police department and to Captain Subi for everything that they do to provide the type of service and the type of care that a city of our size demands and needs. So I appreciate people coming and taking the opportunity to use public comment, but if they want to come and say things about me, I signed up for this. The police department didn't sign up for this, so that's all.
Thanks. Other comments? I wanted to, something that Linda said about, she uses the word rubber stamp, and there was something that actually Justin had said, which I think what you're not seeing from our council, and he said based on what you guys decided to not fund last year, how we decided to fund, the administration changed their way of funding, or part of the reason why you're seeing money transferred in and out of the police department is because we put a stop to using the extra wages going back to the departments. And I just want you to know that we are changing policy and we are changing some of those things. And it may not look like we're up here fighting against each other, because we're talking about it earlier and earlier and trying to get those policies changed and resolved long before it becomes an issue, and we're coming to more compromises. And so what it sometimes looks like as maybe a rubber stamp is not the case. We've changed quite a few of our policies over the last several years, especially around the budget. So I wanted to address that, and I know that was in the redevelopment agency meeting, but and then I hope that we can continue to address the sexually oriented businesses as we move forward. And it sounds like the administration is moving towards doing something like that. So
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say too. Is like it's very refreshing when somebody comes and says, "Hey, appreciate what you did," because we do try to be responsive to people's legitimate complaints. And I think it was your wife and I that chatted for quite some time outside the Weaver Center, and I'm grateful that you came a few weeks ago and that gave us a chance to actually respond to it. And I like Bart. I am such a fan of our police department. I sleep well at night because they're there. I know they have good training. Makes me want to not be a bad guy. I think the bad guys probably would rate them the worst, because they don't get away with that stuff, with our police. Lawful orders, if you just follow the lawful orders of the police, you'll be fine. If you fight them, you're probably not going to like it. So I just think there's different perspectives. That one's mine. I think we've got great police. I choose to be on the law-abiding side of things as best I can, and I suggest others choose to do the same.
all right, any other comments?
I just have a quick comment, and I appreciate those comments from both Councilmember Blair and Councilmember Heyer. And I do appreciate, too, that we live in a country where you can actually, voice your concerns in this setting, but also take up a legal route if necessary, if that's what you need to do. And so I think that I am appreciative of having those systems to help protect everyone. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, I didn't get a chance to mention when Heath was talking about, and maybe this was in the RDA meeting as well, about, these ideas about how we've been increasing the property tax base, which I know there's value to that. But I think there's going to be a certain tipping point, and I was just reviewing back the Make Ogden documents and thinking about those episodes that are kind of laid out in that document. At the end of those episodes, which we probably have on there 20 or 30 years away, it says something like, let's start to consider how we might be impacting some of the people that aren't able to keep up with this growth, this rapid growth that we're creating. And so I think that that's worth thinking about. Is there other things that we can do to help alleviate some of those concerns? Because I think we're actually progressing faster than that plan set forth. I mean, looking back at the records since right before I joined the council to now, our property tax income has doubled, right, from about $10 million to now $22 million. And so I think that is something to start looking at and thinking about. How can we maybe support some of the people that are being impacted? Because I think it's happening faster than what the plan was laid out.
Good point.
Madam Chair, I'd like to share a comment too. I some time ago went on a ride with a cop with Officer Reed Mackley, excuse me, and he was assigned to kind of a complicated issue. It was a domestic violence situation, and he arrived at that site, and I was so impressed with how he handled the situation. And I have had many, many years of opportunity to be in those kind of situations, not legal like his, but otherwise. And I sat back and I thought, wow, this guy, it just really has vision and insight and talent and ability. He completely diffused a really tough situation. And that just impressed me, that our Ogden City police officers have that kind of training and that kind of ability to step into those situations and de-escalate those situations. It was just superbly handled. Additionally, not long ago, we've just completed a remodel of one of my businesses, and one of the contractors that was working in our business left the keys in his car, parked in our parking lot behind our business, and his car was stolen. And I immediately reported to Ogden City Police, and they found the car within an hour. And so I couldn't be more pleased with my experiences with Ogden City Police Department than what I've experienced lately. Are they perfect? I would have to say no. But we're all in a work in progress and striving to be better, and that's what I would like to commend our police officers for, is their diligence, their training, their efforts, and their incredible talent. They do have a lot of abilities that they bring to the table, and I commend them for that. So those are just the comments I'd like to share today.
Good
on
comments.
support of Ogden City Police Department.
Really good comments. Yeah. Anything else? No? All right.
I'll make a motion to go into the closed session if we're ready.
Yep.
Chair, I would make a motion that we adjourn into a closed executive session.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by Councilmember Chaburka, to go into a closed session. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Graff,
Aye.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Heyer,
Aye.
Chair White.
Aye, that passes. We will adjourn from there, and then after that adjournment, we still have a few things to talk about from the work session, so we will be going back into the work session after we adjourn the city council meeting. So if anybody, I don't know how we would do that, but how would we bring? Okay, if you leave now, you can jump back in if you're wanting to listen to the rest of the work session.
Okay.